Hello, welcome, and howdy out there in podcast land. You are listening to Johnny Has the Keys, a great podcast. My name is David.
And I'm Tim.
And we're both here to say hi, howdy, and we're both here to talk about genre pieces, science fiction, horror, things, movies, television, literature, things that meant a lot to us, and we think meant a lot to a lot of people. Influences, keys, things like that. That's what we talk about. Tim, how you been? What have you been up to?
I've been good, David. It's been, a non-plus type week, but I have started another series that I've been putting off a little bit because it's a little bittersweet.
Mm-hmm.
I started the last season of Ash versus the Evil Dead.
Oh, the last season.
Yeah. Yeah, Bruce Campbell made an announcement not long ago that he was retiring from the character. And then because Starz canceled the show.
Right.
And but then he started making all these little hints that something was coming and everybody started getting excited. But apparently he's voicing a video game of it. So I'm not sure there's any.
But I have heard through a few different sources that him, Rob, and Sam have all three started talking about 4 and doing 4 again. So I think you may be onto something. I think they may be trying to work it all out detail-wise, but the last one I'd read said that, and it was like an offshoot of an interview with Tappert or Lucy Lawless or something like that, that said something like they wanted to go back to the Evil Dead roots and not so much of the Army of Darkness kind of thing. Which would be interesting, I think.
Well, that's kind of what the series is, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not set in the cabin, though they have returned to it in episodes. I mean, it's set with his career in retail and his 2 comrades that help him battle the evil that's constantly following him.
I mean, it still seems kind of Evil Dead. I mean, Army of Darkness to me. By that I mean Army of Darkness to me is much more of a comedy than it is a horror movie, almost.
And I see what you're saying.
And so I
you think they're going to get scary again?
It'd be nice. I'd like to see all 3 of them get scary again.
I would be opposed to that. No, I would love it. I mean, the first movie is my favorite. That's why we've already podcasted about it.
Yeah.
So if they want to go back, that's great. And, in this business, we know that, you never say never because the minute they do, there's another Share Farewell tour going on.
But I did see that Bruce is now hosting or going to host a television. He's hosting
Ripley's.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to do Believe It or Not. Didn't Jack Palance used to do that?
Yes, he did.
Jack Palance, my favorite.
Believe it or not.
Probably one of the worst Draculas ever.
Yes, I would agree with that as well. He was, but he's doing that. So hopefully maybe they can squeeze it in at the end of the season or whatever, and they can do another Evil Dead. That would be great.
Speaking of icons, and I don't mean to digress, Robert Englund is going to host a travel show too, like a ghostly travel show.
Really? Seriously? I'm sorry, that just cracked me up. I could just see, you want to go on a vacation with me? That's just like, what? No.
Watch
I don't want to
this.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of funny. I'm sure there's parallels and keys we could draw from the past if we wanted to do enough research.
Mm-hmm.
When, Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff started doing similar in the 60s.
Yeah, that's right.
Commercials and stuff. And now we've got these horror icons, Bruce Campbell and Robert Englund, hosting, travel shows and Ripley's Believe It or Not. Just like Leonard Nimoy did In Search Of.
In Search Of, yeah.
In the 70s. Yep. Yeah. If you want a sci-fi comparison.
Bunch of keys right there, all thrown.
Yeah. I'm full of them. I'm jingling when I walk.
But anyway, Yeah, go ahead.
I was just to sum it up. It's the final season of that incarnation of the Evil Dead, and it has been funny, and I do like his character a lot, and the fact that he works in retail, which I do and know very well, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just kind of funny. So
So is it, is
that's
he
my
still
week.
in the at the S Mart? Is that the whole? Is he still there, or has he got other retail? Is he doing something else?
No, it's the same store. I'm pretty sure. I don't know that they've actually showed it. But he's there.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I don't know if they've shown a sign. And Lucy Lawless is back. I like when she comes back too, because
Interesting.
I think she's died a few times actually.
Oh, great. Yeah, as for me, I've been doing working on 4 different productions right now, so I've been kind of scattered and haven't been able to enjoy anything from a genre perspective. I'm doing 4 different theater shows, so it's been hard to kind of juggle all those rehearsals and schedules. But
That's crazy.
hoping to dive into something. I'm waiting. I know the new Black Mirror, the Netflix series, supposed to have a new series is coming out soon, so I want to see that. And Handmaid's Tale will be back, one of the most depressing series ever.
Yeah, I can't do it.
It should be returning, so I want to see it again. It's worth it. I mean, I think everyone, people should watch it, but it's golly, it's like slit your wrist dark. It's just very a bleak vision of our potential future. So, what are we covering this week in our wonderful podcast, Dr. Tim?
Uh, well, I believe, and if this airs correctly, we did do a sci-fi last week. I believe we did The Matrix.
Mm-hmm.
So this week we're delving back into the depths of horror with a foreign film, something that we haven't done, which I thought was kind of cool to bring into the mix.
They have horror in other countries?
Boy, do they. But we won't go there. This is a little Swedish film. I can give a little bit of history to the property itself
Sure.
later. But as far as a synopsis, this is called Let the Right One In. This movie came out in 2008, and it involves a young and bullied boy named Oscar who meets a rather interesting and unique young girl that happens to move in next door to him, and what she does to help him overcome his weaknesses as far as being bullied.
Okay.
So
Doesn't
this
sound like a
film,
horror movie, Tim.
yeah, she's a very unique little girl.
Ah,
She
okay.
might even be a vampire,
What?
which is a subject we have. It kind of blows my mind that we have not recovered yet in this podcast. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this film. As I said, we've got to do a vampire movie the first season,
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
and I'm glad. And I know you're a big fan of vampires. You like vampires more than as much as like I like zombies. I know you're a
Correct.
vampire
Correct. Yeah.
person. So, and when I found out you had never, I was going to say, when I found out you had never seen this, I wanted to do it even more because I was familiar with it and I thought you would
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah. And I did. I had never seen this movie. I'd heard about it, of course, and I'd heard they even did a remake of it, like an English version or whatever. But I'd
Hmm.
never seen either one. I'd never read the novel because it's based on a novel, right? Didn't it come
It
from a
is.
um, and I have to say I really enjoyed it. I really liked it a lot. Um, it jumped up above several other movies into my horror lexicon. So yes.
I, I can see why.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as far as a brief bit of history, it is written by a Swedish horror author that is pretty popular over there, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
probably not pronouncing his name right, but it's John Avide Lindquist. I think
Mm-hmm.
is how you pronounce it, or at least that's my best Swedish accent,
I think that is
which is
right.
not very good. And he also has a book. I've not read this book, but it was translated into English, and it's been on my list because I'm curious. I hear there's several differences in the book from the movie. And also, he has a book called Handling the Dead, which, if I'm not mistaken, is his interpretation of the zombie genre. So
Mm.
I'm kind
Okay.
of want to dive into that one as well. And the book was written in 2004, so the book came out 4 years before the movie, and he
Okay.
did cooperate and do the screenplay for the movie.
Okay. So one of his adaptations, I mean, Stephen King should learn from him. This is how you adapt your book to make a good movie, kind of thing, I
Hmm.
guess. I don't know. I haven't read the book, so I couldn't tell you. But the movie's definitely, well, first impressions from me,
Hmm.
I had not seen it, really knew anything about it other than, it had a vampire in it. I knew it was a vampire story. Um, and I really liked, I guess the notes that I took of things I liked a lot were, I liked the fact that they took the romance approach to it. And they did it, it kind of deflected you. It gave you something to invest in these characters. And then suddenly when the horror elements would come, it gave them much more punch because you were already so involved in it. Um, I didn't find it very, very, very scary. It didn't make me want to hide my eyes or run behind the couch or anything like that. It did have some very tense moments and some really great, great atmosphere. But I would not put this in previous podcasts we did The Exorcist, and one of the scariest movies I've ever seen. To me, this one was not near that at all. But it did have a great pace and simplicity and minimalism and all this stuff that gave it its own look and its own feel. And I don't know how much of that is a foreign movie compared to an American movie, or how much of that was his interp of, the environment that these characters were in. Does that
Hmm.
make sense? Um,
Absolutely. It's set in an actual suburb of Sweden. I forgot to write that city name down. But they actually filmed it a great deal north of there so that they would have snow because they
okay.
wanted real snow. And I agree. It's a very minimalist movie. It's very subtle. The effects are practical, except for one that is a jarringly bad CGI scene.
The kitty
Um,
cats?
yeah, the kitty cats.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
scene's not good.
that didn't work. No.
Yeah. But everything else is done very, very, very low key, and stuff is hinted at. Like the very first scene, Ellie is the little girl's name. When he realizes she's standing behind him, she's standing like on the bar of a monkey bar, set. But she's like perfectly perched. She's not like trying to balance or anything. She's just there.
Yeah.
And then she jumps down.
And she doesn't
It's
have a
just,
coat. She doesn't have boots. I mean, everything. And
yeah, she's
he's
barefooted.
all, Christmas story boy, all with his big coat on and everything else. And she's just got a shirt and pants on, just kind of hanging out on the jungle gym. Yeah.
Hmm.
I liked that. I liked the way he approached the entire story that way. I mean, we've talked about it before. There's certain stories where it's so minimalistic that it's begging the audience to make its own conclusions, which is good sometimes, but also, if not done well, can be really, really confusing and
Hmm.
really, really pretentious. Like, okay, you just didn't have an answer for that, so you're just making stuff up now, kind of thing. This didn't. I thought everything was intentional in the way they told the story, but they didn't have, 10 minutes of exposition at the beginning. They didn't have a lot of character development with other characters other than these two leads. And even they didn't have that much dialogue together and that much backstory, I guess, if that makes sense. You're just
Hmm.
kind of, we're just kind of led into this situation and we just kind of have to go along with it. And yes, make some of our own suppositions, but that made it all the more intriguing, I think. Um, In fact, once we get to the ending, I have like several questions for you. But like, even Oscar and his mother and his father's relationship, it takes us a little bit to get that whole relationship down and how it is. His mom, obviously the working mom, they're obviously divorced. Dad lives somewhere else. They have joint custody, blah, blah, blah. But none of that is actually stated like that. It's just suddenly, we hear one phone call of, and you're with, and he's going to stay with you next week. It's like, who is she talking? Oh, now I get it. It's his dad.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of thing. I liked that, and I loved the pace of this. I don't think you could ever do this movie now, modern-wise, not and keep that pace. And I would, even though I haven't seen it, I'm probably sure you have, but I would bet the Americanized version of this is much faster paced.
I have seen it, but I don't remember. I remember it was good. I mean, it's not bad, but to me, it just does not capture the magic of the foreign film. And there's other reasons for that, because I do watch foreign movies. I'm a little bit of an oddball there.
Yeah.
Dennis leaves the room because he can't stand reading subtitles. I actually watch American movies with subtitles on because sometimes I can't make out what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And I would rather see it in case, I miss something. So I like the aspect of it being a foreign film. I like that it's slow and subtle. I like that you said it has its own look. It's got it's filmed in maybe blues and greens. Definitely blues.
Yes.
With the
very
snow.
washed out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And well, I don't know if you know this. This is something that I found interesting. Did you know what year the movie takes place in?
It's in the 80s or the 90s, isn't it?
It's in 82.
Okay. In Sweden, though. I mean, it's definitely a Swedish story, right?
It is. But a lot of times when you watch a foreign film, it seems like it's in the past anyway because it's so different from our culture. I don't know if I'm phrasing that correctly.
No, I think that's totally right. That's totally correct.
So it's kind of a picture out of time. It's like, I'm not really sure where this movie is because it's in Sweden and I don't know what the Swedish environment is currently or in the past, other than ABBA or, something that, we identify with. But then when I was doing my research, I did discover that it was in 1982 and I was like, okay, well, maybe that's why he's got that weird haircut, because it's a strange little haircut he's got.
Well, interesting. That also may add to it, though, or may have been a decision by the director because it does have a timeless quality to it. You know what I mean? It's so minimalistic, even in the furnishings in rooms and the hospital and everything, so that it could be very generic in its, where it takes place. And maybe that added to the popularity because this movie was really popular. I mean, I don't think, I don't know about money wise, but the things I read were that it won lots of awards.
It did. I think I wrote a few of them down, actually. It is also on that list, 1001 movies to see before you die as well.
Okay. I didn't know that. But,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, so I was going to ask you, so like some of my notes I talk, because I always, a lot of times I approach things from a visual or a directing standpoint. And is it, you can answer, is this a foreign film kind of technique or is this unique to this particular movie he did a lot of locked down shots. It was almost like a lot of this was filmed with single camera, and not a lot of movement of the camera. In other words, it didn't pan and follow and swoosh. It was a lot of just straight on angle. Then we cut to another angle. We cut to another. I mean, everything's very well framed, very angular. Lots of, like when it shows the bridge at night, it's not the side of the bridge. The bridge is perfectly framed in the middle of the shot. When he shows the schoolyard, the way it's framed, or the apartment building with the jungle gym in the foreground, the two windows up, where they live up in the middle. There's lots of great framing, great close-ups. Is that a foreign convention of storytelling or visually, or is that just in this film, really?
I
Because I'm
think
not
it's
a big
more
foreign
in the
fan.
film. I think it's more in the director and the film.
Okay.
I mean, it does have a foreign film quality that I can't quite put my finger on, but it's not because of the style. It's more because of the look. I mean, because like I can immediately think of like a Bollywood movie right now where cameras sweep around and there's lots of dancing and movement. Or I could think
Right.
of an Australian, horror film with a slasher film where it's, a little more fast paced and there's car
Right.
chases or whatever.
Well,
So
lots
yeah, I
of
don't think it's a trend in
French
foreign film. What's
films
that?
where there's a lot of panoramic stuff. We want to see how beautiful everything is around it and the scene and all of that, and that's not in here either. This is a very tight, close knit, personal, I guess, is the best way to describe it, story.
Hmm.
Um, and it works. It works so well for the characters. It works so well for the plotting. Um, but yeah, it
You
has
know,
that
we
creep factor
we
to
should
it
do a
too,
foreign
though.
film every season. Just
Yeah,
one. I mean,
yeah.
because I'm thinking of stuff that comes to mind that I'm like, oh, he might like this. There's one called Haute Tension or Tension. I don't know how you say it. It's French.
Tension. Okay.
That's about these people that are hiking up in the mountains, and all of a sudden somebody's after them, and it's pretty intense. And I think they may have remade that as well. But yeah, just to sum up what you asked earlier, though, I don't think it's. I just like foreign films. I don't know. I like the fact that it is something that I don't normally experience. Not
Hmm.
just the horror, but the culture itself.
Well, a
Uh,
huge, and this is jumping a little bit, but a huge key for me was this reminded me of the Millennium trilogy, which, the girl with the dragon tattoo, and those foreign films, the ones with Nomi Rapace. She's the lead in them, and she plays Elizabeth Salander. And I had read those books when they came out because I thought it was really interesting that this guy, died and then his books got published, kind of thing. I thought
mhm.
that was a really neat story. And um, what was his name? Larson, Stig Larsson was the author. But they did
Right.
those movies, and they're Swedish. They're very slow. They have a brood. I mean, they have action sequences in them, but it's a personalized story, and it reminded me a lot of that. So that's where I kind of got: is this
Okay.
a Swedish movie convention, or is this in this particular story? But I would recommend those to you. They're not genre. They're not our genres, but they're all three really good movies, and the remakes are not as good. So
Okay. I was going to say I have not seen any of them. My father read the books.
yeah,
I haven't read the books, but I did.
I
I had forgotten that those were Swedish films, so that's kind of interesting. I might want to check those out.
yeah, you should definitely check out at least the first one. See if you like it. If you like the first one, then all three get better and better. And great.
Okay.
And Nomi Rapace is just phenomenal. I think that was what kicked off her career, kind of thing. She was
I
really
think
good.
so too. Hmm.
Um, but
Now I like a movie. Here we go on foreign. This is foreign film hour on Connie Has the Keys. Have you ever seen Run Lola Run?
yeah, that's a good
I
foreign
love
film.
that
Yeah,
movie, and that kicked off Femme
Femke
Potenke. I can't
Jensen.
pronounce. Yeah, I can't pronounce her name,
Yeah.
but that got kicked off her career. She started doing those the Matt Damon series of Robert Ludlum movies. I can't think of his name now. That never seems to go away. But she was in those with him.
Oh, you're talking about Born, right?
Yeah,
Born
the Bourne
Identity.
Identity
Yeah.
movies. That yeah,
Yeah.
the Bourne. The Robert Ludlum wrote like three books, and they made three movies, I think, with Matt Damon. And then now all of a sudden, there's a bunch of other books and a bunch of other movies, neither of which were penned by Ludlum.
Right.
It's like
Yeah.
his ghost is writing them, I guess. But yeah,
Well,
we've had that discussion before too.
yeah, and she even did. Femke Jensen even did a Bond movie. I remember she was in one of the Bonds with Pierce
Oh,
Brosnan too.
okay.
So yeah,
Yeah,
foreign films do have some
yeah.
merit to them at times, I guess.
We will revisit this. Maybe I'll write a blog on just my favorite foreign films.
On foreigns, yeah.
Yeah, because
Um,
I love Pedro Almodovar too. That crazy Spanish guy that does the really
uh-huh.
outrageous comedies. Yeah.
And in this one too, another I guess stylistic for me was lots of close-ups. The key for that to me was silence. It reminded me a lot of the way Silence of the Lambs was done with these personal close-ups of the characters to show you with not a lot of dialogue. So you got the emotion, everything just from their expressions and stuff. The two leads in this are brilliant. They're really, really good.
I have their names. I don't know if I'm pronouncing them right. Oscar is Kare Hedebrandt, and Ellie is Lena Leanderson.
And both are really, really good. Most just their chemistry. It's a great way to watch, a great example to show actors and actresses of look at this on-screen chemistry between them. They can do an entire scene with like 3 sentences of dialogue in the whole scene, but we know everything that's going through their minds. Just very well done. Well, how do you want to proceed in talking about it, other than we like it?
Well, I want to let me do a little bit about the cast. I don't have a lot of casting news.
Okay.
And most of these people, I don't really have to give you their names because we're not going to know them, obviously. But I did want to say that the director's name is Thomas Alfredson, and he went on to do the remake of Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy with Gary Oldman.
Good movie. Yep.
So I'm guessing this. I don't know if this was his jumping board, but it got him noticed, obviously, and he went on to do bigger movies. I also read an interesting thing that neither Lindquist, the author, or Alfredson, the director, like vampires. They really are kind of ambivalent about them.
Okay.
So it's kind of interesting that they both directed pretty much an iconic vampire movie when they don't have much interest in them. The only other person I want to bring up before we move on from the cast, and this is more his character than it is the actor, is the character of Hakan, who is the older man that lives with Ellie.
Okay, the caretaker. I did not even know his name. Because I don't remember it ever being, I didn't read it or hear it in the movie, so I don't.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to talk about him without throwing a bunch of keys out there immediately. But I mean, what did you feel about his? Well, I was going to ask you, how did you feel about that take on the Renfield character from Dracula?
Yeah, that's essentially what he reminded me of. Actually, he reminded me more of Straker from Salem's Lot.
Yeah. Oh, wow, that's great.
And that was the key I got out of it. He's essentially the older caretaker of the, we find out later, even older vampire, but not. Well, first, the big note I have on him is he really sucks at his job.
Yeah, he's terrible. But I think there's a purpose for that.
Bad at his job. And at first, when I first got through with the movie, I was thinking about it, digesting it and everything. I was going, okay, did he do that on purpose? Was he so bad because he was tired and old and wanted to get over it and didn't want to do it anymore or whatever? Because, I mean, he was... Okay, and again, we throw out spoilers because, hopefully you've seen this movie, and we'll just say that as a warning to go into it. But, the first time he kills somebody, he screws it up. And because he does it in the middle of the damn woods. I mean, in a park, it looks like. He picks the guy up on a hiking trail, and then he's hanging it up and gutting him. And plus the fact that, it's snow. It's bright out, And I have the note, okay, if you're going to do a white poodle, you got to put blood on the white poodle. I'm sorry.
Everything's white.
That was a slip right there. But he does that one. Then when he's finally caught, it's because he takes a kid after gym class in a locker room at the high school even. And I'm going, okay, none of this makes any sense unless he's doing it on purpose and wants to, get caught, I guess. What did you think of him? I mean, did you like him? Was he?
I did. I thought it was kind of funny. Well, first of all, that scene where he strings a guy up and slits his throat and has like the
a funnel
gallon.
and a gallon
Yeah,
jug.
the funnel. Yeah, and he's draining him. I think that scene is so beautifully shot and so powerful and dark. So I think a lot of the reason that scene was the way it was is because of the visual of it. I mean, it looked like something out of Fargo or something that's just really, really
Wow, that's a great key. Yeah.
lush to watch.
Well, and it's so
I
nonchalant for him. It's something obviously he's done before. There's no big pretense about it, and I like that. That's very similar to Fargo too.
mhm.
There's no emotion attached to the fact that I have to do this. I'm just gutting a deer. No problem. It just happens to
Yeah.
be two-legged.
Well, and
Yeah.
if you want to delve into the character, and I had planned on talking about this, I thought it would be toward the end, but I don't mind talking about it now. I feel like, I think you're right. I think he's old. I think he's tired. I think he sees what's going on with Ellie and Oscar because he tells her to stay away from him
Mm-hmm.
because he's actually trying to protect the kid because I think the exact same thing happened to him as a child. I
Okay.
think
See,
that Oscar is the new him,
yep,
and
that's
that's how she
exactly what I
selects
thought
the
too.
caretaker. Yeah.
That's exactly what I thought too, especially when he's doing the Morse code on the box at the end. And I was thinking, okay, so he's the new caretaker, right? So, and
Mhm.
I think as soon as that happened, that's why I said I had to gestate the movie at the end. So I thought, okay, so maybe, what was his name? Harkin? Hacken?
Hakan,
Hakan.
Hakan. Yeah.
So maybe he was Oscar's age when he first became her caretaker, and he's done it for that
Exactly.
many years. That makes
Hmm.
sense then, and it gives it a real kind of, on a second watch, it would give it a real kind of pathos to his character. Um,
Right.
I love the scene
And
where
when
he says, I only have one thing. Can you not see that boy tonight? And she just looks at him for a second, and she just reaches up and just kind of pats his cheek and smiles and
mhm.
then just walks off. She never answers him. I think that was a great moment. That was a nice, and at the time we didn't know why that meant. It meant like, oh, you care about me. Shut up. Go do your job.
Mhm.
Or, oh, that's sweet that you asked me, but nah, it's not going to happen. But instead, it's much
Right.
more of a, oh, do you see yourself in him? Are you thinking that? You're not old and done yet, but maybe. So, yeah, I definitely thought that. And see, damn it, I thought that was just an original idea I was going to freak you out with. Damn.
Nah.
Thought I was going to go, yeah.
I think that he's old, he's tired, he sees what's playing out is exactly what happened to him, and once he figures out he has no way of controlling it, he basically sacrifices himself. I mean, it's horrible that he pours that like acid in his face, but
Mm-hmm.
I read somewhere it was to keep them from tracing her back to him or him back to her,
Yeah,
and
when he
then
was
she of
filling up
course
the
takes his
jar
life.
that last night, when she was filling up the jar, he said, people may have seen my face. Because she says something like, is
Yeah,
that really necessary? And he goes, people may have seen my face.
yeah.
Um, which, yeah, and then you said, because my first favorite scene in the whole movie was the hospital. I thought that whole scene was great.
Hmm.
Uh, the way he looked, going ahead and invite. Well, even the subtlety of right before that, when it's just showing the hallway and the nurse's station, and you just off camera hear her voice and somebody say, "Come in," or "Come on in out of the cold," and then she
Hmm.
appears in the hallway. But then she leaves. But then the whole scene with him. Um, you can't just throw him out a window. His head has to hit an awning on the fall down. Holy
Yeah,
crap, dude. That
yeah.
was
I
like,
appreciated that.
and then, yeah, I
I like when she
thought,
shimmies up the outside
oh,
before she
yeah,
goes in, and that was probably CGI too, but it was really subtle,
it
because you
looked
just see
great.
kind of a shadow.
It
Yeah,
worked so well with her just going up the wall, up the gutter or
hmm.
whatever. Yeah, that was
And
one
then
of my
she's
favorite
sitting on the
scenes.
ledge of a high rise. Yeah.
Yeah. And he still had to invite her in, which
Hmm.
he didn't really.
Because
She stayed outside.
which, yeah, and that's a huge. I'm trying to think of the word for it. An undiscovered key, I guess. that I've never seen before what happens to a vampire when they're invited in or not invited in.
Yeah,
But they show it in this film.
I think the closest is Buffy in Buffy, which is, this has some Buffy keys all the way through it, but in Buffy they can't come in. It's like they hit a force field if you don't invite them in. But there's
Oh
no
yeah, okay.
personal repercussion to it. But yeah, I liked that whole thing of her going,
She
okay,
starts
then,
bleeding
sure.
out.
Yeah, everywhere. I mean, even from her
Yeah.
scalp, she's bleeding. Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Me too. I agree with you on that one. I love that whole hospital scene was great because there was also this pathos to him. I didn't do your job for you. I didn't do my job right. So here, have a midnight snack or whatever, kind of thing. Um,
I like if you want to talk about some more of the subtleties as far as effects. I like that her contact lenses made her irises look bigger, but not necessarily menacing. They just looked bigger.
I
Did you
didn't
notice
notice
that?
that really. I noticed
Yeah.
that her eyes looked different, but I couldn't have told you that it would be
hmm
because her irises are big. I did notice in the
It's
one
there's
scene when
less
he. Go ahead.
there's less white in them. There's more iris. There's more
Interesting.
color. Yeah. They fill up her eye more than the average person. It's very subtle. It's
And
very
that's
subtle, but if
great.
you look, you'll see
That's the
it.
way this movie is, though, too. That works perfect for that. Just to give her that subtle kind of thing, other than the fact that she's barefoot in the snow with no winter coats on. Um,
hmm
I liked the time. Speaking of her eyes, I did like the time he takes her to the hangout, the teen hangout or whatever, and she goes in first, and it's dark and her eyes glow. You just get that one glimmer of her eyes glowing.
hmm Yeah.
Really great and very subtle. Again, it reminded me of Blade Runner. That was the key from that one when you question if they're replicants or not because their irises glow,
hmm
kind of thing, which is cool. That was a neat effect. But this movie didn't have a lot of effects. When it did use an effect, it was very, very effective.
Right. And it didn't need them.
No, no, because I think he focused so much on their romance, their relationship, and then the horror is just kind of on the outskirts around them, like slowly closing in. Not only the horror of her being what she is, but also his bullying kind of thing, his whole
hmm
situation, which is threatening, um, which leads to a great effects sequence. That whole thing with the pool was one of my favorite scenes too. I got that one too.
Yeah, that's the scene that always sticks in my head when I think of this movie.
Well, it's
That
such
scene
a
with him
cool
underwater.
way to shoot it. I mean, we've been at this boy's point of view really from the very beginning of the movie. So why
hmm
not do his point of view? And then when he finally comes up out of the water, we get the summation and we find out what happened. That was just
hmm
so cool. Very artsy, though. I mean, a lot of people may not like that, but I really liked it.
Yeah.
I liked the whole feet dangle way across the surface, and then suddenly the head falls in. You go, yeah,
Yeah.
okay, cool.
It's like the feet move almost like a boat
Yeah,
down the water, and then as soon as they pass, all of a sudden the decapitated head drops in, and it's like, wow.
yeah,
I
yeah.
was like, this chick kicks ass. We just don't get to see it.
Really good. And we didn't need to see
Yeah.
it. That was what
Nah.
made it so effective and so good. Really
hmm
like that. I liked all the attacks, even when she attacks. What's his name under the bridge? It's just very much, I'm going to jump on you and bite you. Same thing with Virginia or whatever the girl is, the lady's name.
The one she
All of,
doesn't finish killing that turns.
yeah, the turns. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
and I love that too. They go back to the old school vampire films. There's a key where
yep.
all you have to do is be bitten. You don't have to like drink the blood of an immortal or whatever, which is okay. I mean, if you're into that vampire myth, but this is just the old school. Oh, he's been bitten and he didn't die. He's gonna turn into one. you know,
Yeah. It goes
cheesy that
along
is.
with
Yeah.
that. The whole thing, when we wrote Nosferatu and were working on it, it was the same way. If you're bitten, it happens. And it's that kind of thing. And it's a rabies-y kind of spread the disease, the vampiric thing, which was very big with all the Hammer films. And it was very big with, but isn't it like in a resurgence now? Isn't like The Passage the same way? You can get bit and you turn like that? Isn't that zombie-ish kind of thing?
I've tried to forget The Passage and it's been canceled, but yeah, they ruined that. Well, they didn't ruin it because the book's still great, but they could have done so much more with that. It's more of a man-made biological pathogen. So,
but how do you get it?
It's an infection. The government, it was experiments on death row inmates. And I think in a past podcast, I mentioned that it was actually military, and it's not. I had that wrong. It's been a while since I'd read the book. But it's actually death row inmates that they could experiment on because they signed away their rights because it prevented them from being executed.
So it doesn't spread? Other than you have to be injected or given it or done? You can't,
no, it does. It does, but it starts as a bioweapon.
Bioweapon,
for lack of a better word. Yeah, okay. And then it does spread by infection, yes. Once you're bit, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I liked that too. I liked that convention. I liked the sunlight. I mean, other than crosses and garlic, he held up a lot of the old vampire tropes.
Exactly.
We only see her at night. Sunlight, obviously, not only can burn them, but can cause them to burst into flames in a hospital bed.
Yeah, like in the lake.
I mean, my goodness, that was like fire starter kind of stuff. That was gone. But even that I liked when she figured it out because it was subtle. It was just her finger while she was laying in bed, and the sunlight came and crept over the bed and got on her finger, started burning and pulled her away. She pulled it away. That was really cool and nice, and that's how she slowly starts figuring it out. But yeah, and you have to be invited in. When you bite, you turn. All those good vampire tropes that he modernized in a nice way.
Right. And we're speaking of Virginia, who actually got bit but not killed, and she comes back, and she's in the hospital because she thinks she's sick when she's in actuality a vampire, and they pull the curtains back to let some sun in, and she literally burst into flame. And her boyfriend is kind of the opposite of a key we've talked about. Instead of last girl standing, he's like last man standing. Because there's a group of these people that all of a sudden are kind of getting picked off by Ellie.
Well, yeah, but only really one, and then Virginia's the second, and it's really both times because she couldn't help herself. Hawken or whoever screwed up his job, so she got hungry and she had to do something. I had the key here that her boyfriend, I think his name is Laka or something like that.
It's Lacke.
Yeah, he's Jonathan Harker, is what I put on because he's the one that my girlfriend died, so I'm going to find this evil vampire and kill it, kind of thing, because he turned my girlfriend. So I could see that, but yeah, I think, and I wanted to say one thing about the hospital. It wasn't that they opened up a lot more sun. She actually asked for it. I mean, I think she knew what was going to happen. She wanted to go away. So it made it even more pathetic and cool and neat that she said, burn me.
Right.
Because go ahead.
I was just going to say, when I said last man standing, I didn't mean it like in a slasher sense, like she was picking them off one at a time. But it just did seem like, whether it was out of necessity or coincidence, that this group of older people that kept eating at that diner are slowly dying off, one at a time. And he is literally the last one. And I guess the cat guy may still be alive. Did he get killed?
No, he was still alive because he went out on the porch.
Yeah, he just lived, and I think it's because they all lived in that apartment complex or somewhere near or something. I mean, it was
I got the impression
it.
they all lived in the apartment complex, and then they were all like, that was the local hangout, and they were they went there every other night to get drunk or whatever.
Hmm.
And it was Lodka and his girlfriend, the cat guy who never came out, the
And
other
then the guy that
guy,
got killed at the beginning.
and the guy that got killed at the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, and
and I don't
again,
have his name.
and again, Hawken is no good at his damn job. I mean, he just
He's terrible. But
he's
yeah,
terrible. Um,
yeah. I
yeah,
mean, why
Hawken
would
even
you
got
kill
it.
them in a gym? But then he also hides in that gym while he knows the boys are going to find the boy hanging, still alive. It's almost like he wants to get caught.
Yeah, that's kind of the impression I got too. Yeah, this guy sucks as a vampire assistant. He's just no
Hmm.
good at it at all. Um, I liked. We're talking about effects in a little bit too. I liked audio all the way through this. I liked the music when he used it. I like the fact that there isn't a lot of music, so it gave it a real kind of rawness kind of thing to it. And I loved
It's
all the
very
audio.
classical. The music
Yeah,
sounded very classical to me.
and I loved all the audio effects, like when she got hungry, and you could almost hear her licking teeth, and the gurgling and all that. I mean, there was lots of really cool, subtle audio effects too, that I thought were great all the way through it. What about effects? Good realistic effects. Again, like we said, whether it was CGI or however they did it, her scaling the hospital wall was great. The body
Hmm.
in the frozen ice was great. Um, all the blood effects look realistic. Like when he cuts his hand, it looks like he really cuts his hand. It looks like real blood, rather than a
Hmm.
lot of times when it's either the wrong color or it spurts out too much or whatever. Um,
Opaque. Yeah.
the real subtle stuff they do, like when she drinks in front of him, and for a second she's like an old lady, and then she's not. That was cool. Um,
Hmm.
And the same thing in the other scene where she's with him really intimately and says, see me or be me or whatever in that scene. And you just see an older person as well. So we kind of get the fact that Ellie is probably a few hundred years old, maybe.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
Hawken could be her like fourth or third or fifth assistant, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, Oh, another horror trope. The same thing about triggered. She can't, when she's triggered with blood, she really can't control herself. It like drives her almost like a werewolf, like a wild animal kind of thing.
Hmm.
And that's why she attacks Virginia in the first place. In the middle, in the middle of town, it felt like in the middle of right up a staircase, so that she could have been so easily caught. So maybe that's why she has to have a caretaker, you know?
Hmm. I'm just
Um,
reflecting on some things that I like about it. I, I like that there, and this is this is a key of our own podcast, is that we like stories that don't give you all the information. I like that a lot of it
yes,
is left up to interpretation.
I agree
I
with that.
do know some things because I have read some research on the book. Like I do know how old she is. I do know her, or well, I know that she's more than 200 years old.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
in the in the book, you know, all the ambiguity about her sexuality is really intriguing to me too, because he says something about going steady, and she said, "What if I'm not a girl?"
Okay, I wanted to
And
talk to you about that. You opening up that worm? Is that where you're going? You going to that can right
yeah, I'm
now?
going. Let's go
You
there.
going?
Come on.
Okay, why? Because I wrote it down point blank. What I? Okay, so this is just my notes in order. As I was watching, I actually paused after that scene or paused during that scene a couple times and wrote notes. It says, "So, I didn't get this not a girl thing really at all. Wait, does she mean she's not a girl, she's a vampire? Or she's not a girl, she's not a girl, she's a boy? What does she really mean she's not a girl? Would it matter?" But cool that Oscar is like, do you want to go steady anyway? And she goes, what if I'm not? And he goes, So does that mean you don't want to go steady? What does that mean? He just kind of says, doesn't matter to me, whatever.
Yeah.
So I never got, well, first of all, I didn't really get any androgyny. I guess maybe because her hair's long, she looks feminine, it's obviously a female actress, but I never got a boy with long hair kind of thing until near the end of the end of it, and I started thinking, okay, that could be a boy. Maybe that is a boy. And then they do that one shot, and I went, is that a boy? Seriously? What? I don't understand. Am I supposed to? And so I didn't know what I got out of it.
Yeah. The book has more details on that. In the book, Ellie is actually a boy that was castrated, like in Roman times.
Okay, in Roman time. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like what do they call it? Anne Rice used castrati, the singers that used to
singers.
have the high pitched voice. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
In the movie, they made it a little odder by removing her genitalia entirely, and you get a really quick glimpse of it.
Yeah.
If you pause it, you'll see it. There's just a scar there. There's nothing.
Right.
Which to me is another key in a vampire film that I probably can't even remember, where they're just sexless. They're not male or female because they don't procreate that way. I know. Well, first of all, she's androgynous to me. The minute I saw her, I thought she looked kind of lesbianish. And this is probably because she reminds me of Sarah Gilbert, the actress from Roseanne and The Talk. And Sarah Gilbert is a lesbian, so I don't know. That could have been just a subliminal suggestion in my head.
Mm-hmm.
But I do know that they cast this Lee Anderson girl because of her look, but her voice was too high, so they dubbed it with a deeper actress's voice. An actress that had a deeper voice.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have her name.
To add to the androgyny, you think?
Yes, to definitely add to the androgyny. They said that Leanna, or is that her name, Leanna Anderson? No, Lena Anderson's voice was too high. She sounded too girlish. They wanted more ambiguity with that. So, yeah, it was done intentionally.
Yeah, see, and I didn't get that, but it wasn't to the point that it threw me off the story. You know what I mean? I could see how he did it. Either he did it in a really clever way that it didn't matter, literally, because it obviously didn't matter to Oskar, or it was he missed the mark so much that it didn't bother me, and I didn't know what he meant. Because I even said that. I said, so I just don't get it. What does that mean? Is she or isn't she a he, or he a she, or is it? I don't know. But it worked for me either way. I love the fact that innocence of I love you no matter what doesn't matter to me kind of thing. I really liked that.
And I think, I don't know if the director, Alfredson, I guess is how you say it.
Alfredson.
Or Lindquist, the author. I don't know if either one of them are gay, or if they were trying to put a message in there or any kind of thing. But I have known, as a gay man myself, that children don't give a shit. That's what's cool about them, is that these preconceived notions or prejudice or whatever against people of that are of different sexual orientation are taught. They are not in kids. When you talk about people marrying each other to a kid that age, it's usually no big deal. They don't see things in, it has to be a man and a woman. And I just thought
gender
that was
bias,
kind of cool.
Gender bias is environmental. It comes from.
I think a lot of it is.
Yeah. Okay, I could see that. Yeah.
And I just thought it was funny when she said, "What if I'm not a girl?" She was basically saying, "What if I don't have genitalia whatsoever?" But he was thinking she was saying maybe I'm a boy, and he just said, "I don't care, whatever."
See, and I interpret it as, what if she is saying I'm a vampire? I'm not a girl anymore. I'm not a person. You know what I mean?
And
That's
it
the
could
way
be
I
that
got
too.
it.
Yeah.
or the way that I thought he interpreted it was, yeah. So I kind of suspect
Hmm.
you're not human, but that's okay with me. I don't care. You
Right.
know.
Layers,
Yeah,
man,
lots of layers, and it
layers.
worked really well. Um,
Yeah.
so, um, so the misses, I think, in this movie are the things that I kind of went, eh. I didn't,
Okay.
not that I disliked them, but they were kind of cliche all the way through, which was all of the bullying, all the way through, was to me a little cliche. It was always
Hmm.
the head bully's introduction is leaning on his locker and tweaking his nose, and surrounded always by at least two of his minion thuggies kind of thing, who are reticent, only doing what, the lead bully tells us to do, kind of thing. Um,
It's
that to me
cliche.
was a little cliche. We
Yeah.
have to introduce the older brother, and so he's obviously bullied at home by his dad, so that's why obviously he's bullied, I guess. So because he's bullied by his brother, he's a bully. The older brother has to have a switchblade. I even put here, the obligatory cliche bully switchblade. You know, he can't have a tire iron or something. It's got to be a switchblade. Um, but it wasn't so bad that it threw me off the story. I didn't, go, oh, that's terrible. It was just like, little on the nose.
No.
But everything else is
And
so subtle and so cool and so layered, and that's just so right out there. So that
yeah, a
was
little
my,
bit. I give it to them in a slight regard in that they are being minimal. So they want you to know this background before you even know these kids. So maybe that's why they did the silhouette of the locker. Is we need you to know that these are bad guys immediately. I don't know.
true. It'd be like the Western, he's wearing a black hat. Oh, he's the bad guy. Yeah.
Hmm.
I could see that. Or, okay, this explains why the kid has a knife and is stabbing it saying squeal like a pig, which reminded me, of course, of, of Burt Reynolds. But it's
Yeah.
just, um, but yeah, so that was really the only thing though. And like I said, I agree with you. I give it to him just because I think it did help propel the story and it was right there.
Hmm.
Um, and they did.
Less focus on them and more focus on the characters that we care
Yeah,
about. Yeah.
yeah, and they did add a little layer in that they did the pool scene so artistically and so cool, and the fact that they left the one kid there crying. When he left with her, I liked that. I thought that was really cool, and it
Hmm.
wasn't typical and expected, so I really liked that. Um, and here's there it is. So was Oscar the new version of that old guy? Okay, there's that out of the way. What else? I've just got some like random notes like, wow, this country is way too white and bright during the daylight. Because it was so blindingly white in the daylight. I was going, no wonder the night looks so
um,
much better.
I like going back to the subtlety. I like that the word vampire is only used once in the film.
And they at least use it. They don't
Hmm.
ignore the fact. I mean, all of them get it.
Hmm.
What's his name, Laka or whatever, obviously thinks that this kid is a vampire or is
Right.
a monster of some kind. They get
Hmm.
it. I liked that. Yeah, I do like the fact they didn't overuse it, but they at least acknowledged it. And they
And it
didn't try
was
to come up with kindred or, undead, your
that's
own word,
that's just weak.
Yeah.
In the words of Steve Rowe, that's weak.
And the way they did it with, him and her separated by the glass, and he just bluntly says, are you a vampire? He just goes right for it. I liked that. I thought that was good.
Hmm.
Um, I like the fact that she can't eat. That was cool. That was another, not often told, but another vampire trope of,
Yeah, she
they
threw up.
literally cannot eat human food. That makes them ill. So I liked that. Um, the feral
What did you
cats were
think of the
bad.
scene where short? Well, actually, there's a scene before that where Ellie. It's the scene where Ellie asks to be invited in, and he says, "What if I say no?" And she comes in and bleeds out.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the scene following that, where they make up, it's kind of like they had broke up, now they're back together, and she is asleep in the apartment, and Lockie breaks in,
Mm-hmm.
and Oscar's hiding in there
Yeah.
underneath like a cabinet to protect her. What did you think of that scene?
I like that scene. I thought that scene was the closest to like a really scary, scary scene and I found myself going, doing what I do in good horror movies or good vampire movies, I should say. I root for the vampire. So I was
Hmm.
going, okay, don't find her, don't find her, don't find her. I said, oh, you find her, she will mess you up, dude. He's gonna have to hide it. Oscar's gonna have to clean up the body or whatever. That's what I kept thinking. So I liked that whole scene actually when he broke in.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
I've
and
got a
she's
scene,
asleep in the bathtub.
yeah, and covered up with
That's
like
like,
three
I mean, I
blankets.
know there's a key for that too, because I'm sure I've seen a vampire movie where some vampire was in a bathtub asleep.
I think it's The Hunger, the
Is
one with
it?
David
Okay.
Bowie. Isn't he in a bathtub?
Okay.
Because that's what
It's
part of
been a
this reminded
long
me of
time
too.
since I saw that.
You were talking about androgynous vampires and the whole
Hmm.
romance angle. That key would definitely be The Hunger, the David Bowie movie.
Right.
Um, I've got a scene for you. What did you think of a scene that I thought was a little bit superfluous? And I was thinking, oh, this is going to lead to somewhere later on, and it never did. So at the end, I kind of questioned why that scene was in there. But it's Oscar spends the weekend or whenever with his dad. He tells Ellie he has to go away, but he shows him on the train or the bus or whatever, and then he's with his dad and they're playing a game. And this creepy old uncle dude comes in, and he, from the minute you see him, is creepy.
Yeah,
And he's almost
I
like
forgot about that.
pseudo pedophile. I'm just gonna stare at the little blonde boy, kind of creepy. And Dad acts really weird once he arrives. Stops playing the game, gets up. They get beers. They start drinking and kind of literally ignoring Oscar, who's sitting there at the table right with them. And
Hmm.
then it cuts, and nothing ever happens with that again. And I thought, what did that mean? What was Dad? Because I really got a pedophile vibe from Uncle Bob or whatever his name was,
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Uncle Sven or whatever. Um, that really threw me off. I was going, what? So maybe I don't know what he was trying to say. Was he trying to say that Oscar, is bullied even by his own dad or whatever? I don't know. It was weird though. That was a weird scene to me.
Yeah, I had actually forgotten about it. But it brings me back to the scene you mentioned earlier where she says, no, you have him for the weekend or something. I
Hmm.
mean, there's obviously a reason why they divorced, and I wonder if it has something to do with that.
Oh, that
But
would
if
be a
that is,
whole cool subtext, wouldn't it? It was your brother that kind of came onto him, and that's why we're
hmm.
divorced or whatever. Yeah. Ooh, I hadn't thought of that.
Well, and but why would you want Oscar to go visit him if you knew that could potentially happen, though? I mean,
Well,
so
I
it
don't know.
it
See.
is, yeah. Again, layers, but these layers don't make as much sense as the ones that we can normally fill in.
Yeah, there were only
But
two
yeah, it's
scenes
an
that
odd
really threw
scene.
me off. It was that one, and it was the other scene where Oscar finally goes to visit her in her apartment. This is after the caretaker has died, and that's when he asks the vampire question. And the only time they ever gives a little bit of history because she has like the golden goose's egg or whatever, and she has all the other watches and rings and stuff like that. And he even says you got those from people you killed, and she doesn't comment. It was just really weird. I wasn't sure what I was supposed to feel as Oscar, and maybe it's because that's the way Oscar feels. He's not really sure how he feels. He really likes her a lot, but he now realizes she is this creature, and how he's supposed to react to that. She's supposed to accept everything she does, like she's a killer or whatever. So maybe that's what they meant for me to feel, but it was a really off scene, I thought.
I have some trivia and I
Sure.
have some awards information.
Let's do that, and then we'll
Um,
jump into keys.
sure. Halophane. I was like, what is, or Halfalane? No, Halophane is the name of it. I was like, I saw that on that bottle that Haken was carrying around. I was like,
Yeah.
what is that? It's an anesthesia. So he wasn't killing these people. He was just knocking them out and then draining them, I guess.
So yeah, knocking
Um,
them out long enough to subdue them, and then draining them like gutted deer, kind of whatever. That would make
right.
sense.
I read that. I don't know that this is correct, but supposedly every scene contains at least one red or orange element.
Okay.
But
I
it
didn't
seemed to
notice
me
that.
like it was all blues and grays. But
Yeah, I didn't notice that. Almost like Sixth Sense. I would have to go back and look at
hmm
that to see.
um, I mentioned the contaminant. Oh, there's a goof in there. The movie takes place in 1982, but
hmm
uh, Oscar cuts out articles, I guess because he's bullied, I don't know why, of these incidents of murder. And one of them clearly says 1995 on it. I thought
Oh,
that was
okay.
funny. Yeah. Um, the film went on to win the Fangoria Chainsaw Award for Best Screenplay in
hmm
2009. It
Okay.
was nominated for a BAFTA, which I believe is the European version of the Academy Awards,
Yep.
for foreign language film. It was a huge success in Sweden, like you had mentioned. Um, and then the Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror Films, it won the best foreign film.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
So, yeah, so it's got a pretty good pedigree for something that a lot of Americans probably aren't familiar with. Because a lot of Americans don't watch foreign films.
True. True.
They'll be like, "Oh,
That's
isn't that
cool.
movie with Chloe? What's her face?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Um,
because
I've got several music that I love the music all the way through. I like the music for their separation. I liked the music subtlety at the beginning when they used it. I've got a few random keys. Like I just have key. I hated PE just because it was like that's where you're automatically going to get bullied, and him
and
even to
weren't
the
those
point
like the
of
worst shorts in the world? And
oh
he tucked his
always
shirt into them. I was like,
yeah.
dude, no wonder they're picking on you. You look terrible.
Yeah, dude, you can't do that anymore. Yeah, I hate PE. Uh, I have that's Weird Cat. We did that one. I have the whole brother scene. I'm your big brother, so I can smoke cigarettes and have a switchblade and bully you all I want because I'm your big brother. Reminded me of Stranger Things season 2. That was very, just they introduced the big brother who's abusive and smokes cigarettes because he's cool and all that.
Yeah, that's weird. Stranger Things is like a vortex of keys
Oh
because
God,
it's
yeah,
going. I mean, when you use it as a key, I'm like, ooh, that could be dangerous. We may
yeah.
slip
You
into
you
a
could be
into
slipped in
some kind of
there.
black hole.
Yeah. I've got for the pool scene. I've got okay, dude. Just swim to the damn middle. Why are you treading water at the edge of the pool listening to this asshole? Just swim to the middle. What's he gonna do? Jump in the water? No.
Yeah.
So and that was a little elaborate for a ruse. We have to set a bonfire outside to get the teacher away. You can't just
Oh yeah,
pull,
yeah.
you know.
And
Um,
and they ran all the other people off. Like, what
yeah,
if they
get
didn't
out.
leave? Or
We're
what
the
if someone
gang.
else was hanging out? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
that
might as
was a
well have
little bit
had
of staged.
jackets on that said demons or something. We're
Hmm.
the night riders here to kill you or whatever. But yeah, it was. But they made up for it
Knight Rider.
because that pool scene was awesome.
Sorry, you
um,
just took me to Mad Max immediately when
yeah,
you said that.
Toe
Knight
Cutter and
Rider.
Night Rider. Yeah, baby. um, what keys do you have? Because I have a lot of course, film keys.
My biggest collection of keys would
Hmm.
go to movies involving children as vampires.
Oh,
And
I'd be
you've
curious.
got Interview with a Vampire, obviously, is
Hmm.
probably one of the granddaddies of all. Near Dark, there is a little boy in their
Definitely Near Dark.
clan that
Yep.
is oldest of all of them. He's like from the Civil War.
Yep. Which, by
And
the way, gentle readers, listeners, if you have not seen that movie, watch that movie. Near Dark is a really good vampire movie. Really underrated, I think. Catherine Bigelow.
it's on my short list of films for maybe our second season.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because it's
I was
got,
thinking about that one too. That's a really good movie.
oh, yeah, Bill Paxton, Lance Henriksen. That's a good movie. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Hmm and then Salem's Lot, which had little kids floating outside
Oh,
windows. So,
forgot that. What the heck, David? How
mm.
could you forget that one? Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing how, when Anne Rice made a child vampire, it was kind of revolutionary, I guess, in 1976 when you're reading the book. But I didn't realize how many now movies there are with child vampires in them. There's quite a few actually,
Yeah,
and
that's
this
actually
is
true.
this is another one. So that would
Um,
be my major key collection right there.
okay, I have, other than the cliche of Dracula and all the stuff with Dracula, you have to invite me in, blah, 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 the classic Dracula vampire story. I have
Right.
Buffy, of course. There's several
Hmm
Buffy type references in here, but of, vampires in a high school, young vampires or, teenage sort of vampires. Um, uh, 30 Days of Night, just for the snow.
I love that
Because
movie.
it reminded me of that. Fright Night. The whole beginning reminded me of Fright Night. Not just the vampire, but that whole feeling of a mysterious neighbor moving in and putting stuff over the windows and all that was very Fright Night to me. Um,
What do you mean, Brewster?
oh God, I forgot about that line. Okay, that's good. That was a good one. The Dark.
They didn't need to remake that film.
No, no, no,
No,
no.
no, that first
Um,
movie was fine on its own.
I've got a key could be Twilight because I'm just falling in love with a vampire, but it's gender switched. You know.
I
Um,
refuse to even use that as a key for him. Yeah, I
you
just kind of try to forget that.
you have to
But
because he's going to be the new Batman, and he's going to sparkle as Batman, probably.
is he?
Um,
Good.
uh, I've got a question. Since we're in the snow, would vampire's breath create fog? Ooh, that's a good question for the
No, it
trivia
wouldn't.
out there.
But
Really?
then again, do vampires even breathe?
Right.
Yeah,
If that right.
I've often wondered that.
And
It keeps me up at night.
three last keys. The music at times reminds me of Silence of the Lambs music. If you
Hmm
listen to it, it sounds like Howard Shore did the soundtrack. I don't know who did, but
Yeah, it does. And some of the scene setups are similar to
yeah,
Silence as well.
very,
Yeah.
very. The fact that his name is Alfredson reminded me of Handmaid's Tale, just because all of them have son in their name. It's like Olaf's son, Steve's son, because they're all named
Yeah.
after their masters or whatever, the generals. And my last key is Teeth. Have you ever seen the movie Teeth?
No.
It's about a girl with a unique
Oh,
mutation.
I've heard about this. Yeah, I have heard about this, but I've not seen it.
It's the way the girl is played in that is interesting because I guess because she's harboring the secret kind of thing, just
Hmm
the same way Ellie was. And her performance is very similar to Ellie's. It reminds me of that in a lot of that particular movie because she has this kind of like, this secret that she's hiding. And that was my last key, really, was that one.
hmm
I like the fact that the
What?
teacher reads from The Hobbit and talks about monsters and shadows. I thought that was cool when they're in
Yeah,
school.
that is cool.
Um,
And it's like you said, there's a plethora of literary keys from Dracula alone
oh, yeah.
because of the genre itself. Um,
But it's
as
a
far as
good,
sunlight and
it is so nice to watch a well-told regular paced horror story again. You didn't have to have jump scares. You didn't have to have extreme gore. You didn't have to have, it was just a well-told, cool feeling. But again, opposite of that, to me, as I said at the very beginning, it wasn't that scary. I would recommend this movie to people who they want a creep factor, but they don't want to be terrified and run screaming out of the theater, or feel like somebody will bite into their right shoulder and rip it off, and squirt blood everywhere.
You touched on a key earlier with the hunger, as far as like sexual ambiguity, and also homosexuality. You could lump the hunger and Interview with the Vampire in there, both. As in, I mean, those elements were introduced into vampire literature in the 70s and 80s. Actually, maybe even before that, because Dracula's Daughter, back in the 30s and 40s, whenever that movie came out, there's a huge lesbian overtone or undertone in that movie.
I could see
Go back and watch it, and you'll see exactly. Just very similar to Rebecca, the Alfred Hitchcock movie written by Daphne du Maurier. There's a heavy lesbian undertone in that. It's not a vampire film, but that stuff was done actually before the 70s. I don't know why I said that.
Okay.
But that's a good key too, and that brings me to something that I would like to discuss about vampires in general. And I posted something on Facebook a week or so back. Do you like your vampires cuddly and sparkly, or do you like them savage and sinister? And I was being a little facetious when I said that, but I do think there's a place for the intelligent, suave, cool vampire, like the vampires of the Anne Rice books, although they've never really captured that on film other than maybe the one movie with Tom Cruise. And I like the savage vampires of Salem's Lot that are, or 30 Days of Night, that are just ferocious animals. That doesn't mean that there's a place for Twilight, because I really don't think there is. I hate those.
But no, I agree with that.
But I don't dislike intelligent, good-looking, sexual vampires. I think that's cool. I just don't like the ones in Twilight. And I also like the ferocious ones. So there's genres within the genre that I do respect and I think are valid.
Well, it's interesting. When you posted that, I thought, my question, if I had phrased it, because vampires are my favorite, supernatural creature, I would say, does the vampire consider it a curse or not? Is the vampire cursed or not? Because I think that's where you get into a lot of the cool subtlety. You can have a vampire who doesn't consider this a curse, and they can become feral and ferocious and cruel and all of that, and just really enjoy like 30 Days of Nights. They really like their jobs, their new kind of thing. It's like when, is it a curse or is it not? Or you have the ones that this is a curse that they have to suffer through, like in Interview with a Vampire, and like in even, Angel and Buffy. And those vampires can be that romantic pathos of, I feel kind of sorry for them in this realm, kind of thing. And that's one of the things I like about it. It's very similar to the werewolf curse. You can have a werewolf.
That's exactly what I was going there. That's so funny that you went there. Because I think of the werewolf as being more of a curse just because of the way it was originally played out in like the Wolfman movie.
Mm-hmm.
As far as vampires, I think it's their own interpretation, and it's really hard to talk about vampires without talking about Anne Rice, because I've read all of those books, good and bad, and I mean, she literally wrote the Bible of vampires, and all of her characters, there's a bunch, have different interpretations of what they are, and Louis was the cursed one. He was the one that was remorseful for killing people. Lestat was the one that embraced it and enjoyed it and used it as a power. And then there are the ones that felt like they didn't belong, and they became the feral monstrosities that, are in the books like Dracula or Salem's Lot. So there's plenty of room for interpretation. There's no room for sparkle, but there's plenty of room for other interpretation.
Yeah, true.
And they don't play baseball.
No.
And they're not out in the daylight.
I mean,
there's a few things that I just, there are some staples you need to stick by. I don't give a shit about the crosses because that's, a religious thing. And there could be a Jewish vampire out there that doesn't give a shit about your cross.
Right.
But I do care about the nocturnal aspect of it.
Well, that's what made, that's what made Salem's Lot one of my favorite King books. Is, even the scene where they hold the cross up and he just literally grabs it and throws it away. It's like, it means that is a superstition. That is not true, kind of thing. But
well, actually, in Salem's Lot, it's because the priest has lost his faith, and the vampire senses it, and he knows that it's no good because the priest doesn't believe either.
And there's, but the difference between like the book and the miniseries, where suddenly Straker it turns into your feral Nosferatu type monster, as opposed to this debonair vampire who talks.
You mean Barlow?
And everything else. Barlow, yeah.
Yeah, Straker's the Renfield character. Yeah,
right. But Barlow in the book actually has dialogue and talks to them, and in the miniseries he was this creature,
He was Nosferatu. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is really just a German term for vampire. But Barlow in the book wrote letters. He left them like a letter. So he was somewhat human.
Yeah, he was taunting them. Yeah, he even left you a gift in the basement. Go down and check it out. So there was and the vampire. We could do another hour just on vampires, just because we could. We each like them,
and they are making another Salem's Lot, by the way. I don't know if you've heard.
Well, we'll see.
Whatever.
Yeah, right. See, King is really having a rebirth. Pardon the pun. Of everything. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do. We both recommend this movie. It's really good. It would be a good introduction to somebody who doesn't like horror movies and you want to try to get them hooked. This might be a good way because it is well done, but not in your face scream and yell. Great storytelling and some great world building.
Well, and in all honesty, it plays a little bit like a young adult novel. And I would highly recommend this to a teenager over Twilight any day.
Oh God, yeah, that's a great point. Yeah,
yeah.
You want to see teenage?
It's a little visceral, but it's still it's something I think a kid could handle.
You want to see teenage vampires? This is teenage vampires.
Yeah. Maybe not the scene where she's missing her genitalia, but
yeah, you could.
But other than that,
close your eyes right here. Now you can look. Okay, cool. Well, thanks. Listeners, thank you for listening to us. Tim, you got any last comments you want to tell them since we've just been gabbing?
No, I just want to encourage you guys. We will continue this vampire conversation. I'm sure it will come up again in a future podcast episode, so we will end it here. But we'd like to end it by saying, please go out there and subscribe to us on your podcast listening platform of choice. Find our Facebook page, friend us, talk to us. I make these crazy little promo videos. I've been doing shout outs to people that are actually communicating with us. So that would be fun if you want to drop us a line. And other than that, I guess I'll be seeing you next podcast.
Awesome. See you then.
All right. Take care.